Negotiating terms for a business exit, 4 items and 1 key concept. So when you're negotiating, when you have who you think is going to be the optimal counterparty or a group of potential acquirers for a business, there's 4 items you really want to negotiate, among others, but these are the 4 primary ones. So the first is going to be value. How much is the business worth? And whether this is a multiple of EBITDA, a multiple of adjusted EBITDA, which is what we like to use, a more normalized adjusted EBITDA on a trailing 12-month basis tends to be kind of the gold standard of the metric. But that, if you can get the conversation towards a gross profit or towards a revenue multiple perspective, that's fine too. But you want to talk about value of the business. That's going to be key variable number 1, and oftentimes the headline variable. The second is going to be structure. It could be equally as important as the first. The structure is going to be how much of that's guaranteed, how much of it's at closing, how much of it's after closing, and in what tranches after closing, how much time is there going to be, what are the different check-ins, what are the different hurdles, are there contingencies other than just the passing of time? We obviously want to minimize those, mitigate those, but the structure is key to what the realistic value is going to be of the business. If I said I'll give you $1 today and the rest of $1 billion if you can jump over the Empire State Building, probably not going to get there. That being said, if you can get $1 every minute for the next billion minutes by just sitting there, right, that probability comes in. And then taking that even further, if you just said we want all of it at closing, obviously that de-risks it all the way to the other end of the spectrum. So think of structure in that way. On one end of the spectrum, you've got to swim across the Atlantic Ocean to get the money. On the other side, it's you get everything at closing. We always want to see how far we can push it in that direction. Next is a transition period. And so if you're the seller of a business, it's unlikely that you've been 100% passive in the company, particularly with companies that we work with, $1 to $10 million in EBITDA. There's usually some level of involvement. And so acquirers, to de-risk their investment, are going to say we want that person around for a certain amount of time. Now, if someone goes into an acquisition process on an unsolicited basis, oftentimes that can be 3 to 5 years. We want to push that conversation closer to 1 to 2 years, and we want it on a tapering basis. Now, facts and circumstances are going to dictate this and allow more leverage or not, depending on how involved you are with the business, how much you've been able to delegate. Are there other key people in the business that can do some of the tasks? Are there certain redundancies in terms of not being a key woman or man risk? But that being said, we always want that transition period to be shorter. And lastly is stakeholders, and this is the employees and community considerations. And so if you're selling a business, you can take the stance of, I will not sell the business if anyone is going to get fired in the next 5 years. Right? Now, is that going to have an impact on value, structure, transition? Of course it is. But starting in that place can sometimes be a good leverage to get the assurances that you can. And we've had many situations where no employees are going to get fired for a year, right? If that's something that someone wanted to do. Oftentimes in this environment where it's labor constrained, that's not even something that acquirers want to do. But that being said, you can get certain assurances in there. What are certain people's roles going to be? Other things like that. And it's a variable to be negotiated. That can oftentimes fall through the cracks because it's just something that people say, I didn't know I could negotiate that. And so to summarize these things, we think of the 4 elements that need to be negotiated in the sale of a business: value, structure, transition, stakeholders. And one key concept that kind of wraps all of this is the idea of the allocation of risk. And so you can think of any contract, you can think of any agreement, you can think of any deal as the allocation of risk. Right? We expect collectively these things to happen in the future. However, if A doesn't happen, then B happens. If X doesn't happen, then Z happens, right? And so from your perspective of the deal, you always have to say, we are allocating risk. The negotiation of the deal, the structure, some of the other elements of it, it is truly the allocation of risk. Because you're basically saying, well, if things don't go as optimally planned, who's going to incur the negative outcome of that? Or if things go exceptionally well to plan, who is that going to inure to the benefit of? And so that's the consideration. You have your 4 considerations to be negotiated relative to negotiating the exit. But on top of that, take a second look and say, how is risk being allocated and can it be further optimized or mitigated? So that's a thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. See everyone next time.